Having me back.
Thanks so much for joining us. I want to get to Michael Bloomberg in a minute. But first, let's talk about this week being the kickoff to 2020. This was your sentiment initially.
Well, here's the thing. It's been a tremendous reversal of fortune. The president said a couple of weeks ago, I think he tweeted out, unity and substance, unity and substance. And so as the Democrats, brought to the nation this impeachment hearing, and particularly on broadcast TV and cable nonstop, the ratings on Fox are off the charts. Many of the independents and kind of low information voters that are not on politics all the time came into this story, and it was a flop. I mean, it absolutely, if you see the numbers of independents, you see the shift over the last 2 or 3 weeks, it's been pretty amazing. And this is what the president said. It's not, his call was perfect, but he's making a very strong point. This is why he was elected to be president of the United States. He wants people to get more into the granularity, more into the substance of what went on. And as you saw as you saw the unelected bureaucrats, and right, I'm not questioning their patriotism, but as they went up day in and day out, under the withering kind of cross-examination by people like Congressman Stefanik, it just kind of nothing came of it. And I think people are now looking at, and particularly independents, and saying, what are we doing on USMCA? What are we doing on opioids, prescription drugs, infrastructure, the business of the nation? Vanity Fair went into a Politico Morning Consult poll, and the numbers are stunning. I think by 3 to 1, independents don't know why we're doing this. Impeachment ranked last among their interests, even lower than the wall, which is not high for independents. So across the board, they're sitting there going, what are you doing? Why are you not focused on the business of making the country better, making the economy better? And people have very little time now. One of the reasons is Donald Trump's put everybody back to work. So everybody's busy. They can only watch this in certain snippets. And I think Adam Schiff did the president a great service this week by having these hearings and letting people see what's going on. And now you're seeing in these 31 districts, many of these congressmen have to go home and have to defend this week. It's going to be a tough week for Democrats.
Yeah, let's talk about those 31 districts. I want to get to Michael Bloomberg because you were so spot on. When nobody was talking about Michael Bloomberg, you came on this program and you said, I'm expecting him to enter the race because you didn't think anybody on that stage could truly take on Donald Trump. But let's talk about these 31 districts that we're referring to and where the vulnerability is. These are areas that Donald Trump won in 2016, but that Democrats are running for re-election in Congress.
Well, these are why these are important. Obama won these districts twice. Trump won them in 16. The Democrats didn't win them in roughly in 18. And these are, and Nancy Pelosi kind of handpicked these candidates. It's Max Rose in Staten Island. I think Lieutenant Commander Mickey Sherrill up in New Jersey 11. These are kind of handpicked, either veterans, people who worked at the CIA, handpicked candidates. When they ran, Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats said, never mention impeachment. Talk about health care, talk about jobs, talk about national security. And now they're put into a quandary. Those 31 are really where this impeachment, and I think it's Nancy Pelosi is risking now her speakership by continuing to press on and even trying to have an impeachment vote, which looked inevitable. And still, they're so invested in this. Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, and particularly the media, the inside the Beltway Democrats and the media are so invested. But she's going to risk her speakership because I think there's a guy named Anthony Brindisi in Utica. He was interviewed by local TV on Friday and said, hey, I'm neutral right now. And this is after going through a week of hearings, or 2 weeks of hearings. So these Democrats who are absolutely essential to have independents vote for them, because these are districts that President Trump won. They are now in a quandary. I think many of them believe that if they actually vote for the articles of impeachment later in December, they believe they could be signing their political death warrant. And so that is why these 31 are so critical. And I think right now it's a lot of softness. I think you're going to see a lot of second guessing and a lot of backbiting among the Democrats as President Trump continues to say, I want more substance. And one of the things they're looking at is a potential Senate trial. Whereas on this show 3 weeks ago, I said, not just Hunter Biden, but Senator Joe Biden, I think, has to go before the nation and make the case why he's not above the law. Why did he try to bring American crony capitalism into the most corrupt nation in Europe and the third most corrupt nation in the world? And I think as these Democrats sit there in the 31 district and say, hey, if more details come out on Trump's side and now Trump's on offense, it's only going to make our job tougher.
So two things. On the one hand, you've got Democrats who may very well vote no in an impeachment if it, in fact, does go to the floor for the full House?
Let's go back to unity and substance. You've got the Republican Party, and I've been one of the rebels in the Republican Party. You've got the Republican Party more united than it's ever been, even in the run-up to the 2016 election. You have them saying this is unacceptable, it's unfair, this man was elected. We're not going to let this, we're not going to let the nullification project on overturning the 2016 election happen. Everybody's pulling together. So you have unity. You look at Hurd, who is probably the outlier on the committee. He's basically said, hey, I am not voting for impeachment. So you have the Republicans totally united. On the Democrat side, you've already had a member of leadership, and you had Van Drew. You've already had 2 vote no, and now you've got the 31. A lot of them saying, hey, I'm neutral right now. So I think you could have a carve-off of up to a half a dozen Democrats that don't vote for this, which then turns it into not just a partisan vote, but a highly partisan vote. And we've never had that on any impeachment, just a highly partisan vote to try to impeach the president. That, to me, kicks off 2020 in a great way for the president.
And then the other thing you just said is, should this go to a trial in the Senate, then Lindsey Graham and company are going to be getting people to go down and testify. Already, Lindsey Graham says that he wants Michael Horowitz to testify. You're saying Hunter Biden will be down there. This is going to open up a can of worms.
Listen, this is why it gets back to the substance. You're going to have one later in your show, Congressman Stefanik. Under the very limited rules that the Republicans had, she basically was able to I think, field strip some of the testimony by asking tough questions that demanded simple answers. If you think you go to a trial where you've actually got Donald Trump able to, and he calls it an affirmative defense, and you know when Trump goes on offense, it's tough. And I think you're going to see guys called and witnesses brought up that are going to just blow the Democrats out, including, I think there will be a huge effort to have Joe Biden come before the Senate and actually give testimony of why, as vice president, forget running for president, why, as vice president, he allowed American crony capitalism, which everybody's been fighting, to actually get involved in this corrupt situation in Ukraine. And I think it was one of the reasons that you had this young Zelensky president, the stand-up comic, who ran as an anti-corruption. One of the reasons I think he was elected is because of the things like what Joe Biden did. And I think he's going to have to answer for that. And if you ask these Democrats in 31 districts, they don't want any more of that. They've seen enough.
And by the way, when we're talking about the